Imagine this. A sleek boardroom, polished glass tables, millionaires in tailored suits, all waiting for a high-stakes meeting to kick off. The tension is electric. Everyone's leaning forward, stealing glances, wondering what's about to unfold. Then, the door swings open, and in walks a rich widow, her heels echoing like a metronome of power. But here's the twist that hooks you. What's she doing with a janitor trailing behind her, clutching a rag like it's his lifeline? What happens next will leave you questioning everything you think you know about wealth, worth, and who really holds the reins. The air in Harrington Enterprises boardroom buzzes with that kind of anticipation that makes your spine tingle. These aren't just any suits. These are the kind of people who whisper deals over rare whiskey and sign contracts that shift fortunes. They're ready to dive into numbers, profits, and the fate of a company teetering on the edge. But when Elena Harrington strides in, all eyes lock on her, and not just because she's the widow calling the shots. It's the guy next to her. No crisp tie, no flashy watch, just a janitor named Daniel in a faded blue jumpsuit, looking like he wandered into the wrong universe. The room freezes. You can practically hear the gears grinding in their heads. What is this? Elena doesn't flinch. She glides to the head of the table with a calm that could silence a storm, while Daniel shuffles beside her, his shoulders hunched like he's trying to shrink into nothing. The executives, guys who've spent lifetimes climbing ladders, swap looks, their polished masks slipping just enough to show the confusion. The CFO, Lawrence Whitman, dares to break the silence, his voice tight with forced courtesy. Mrs. Harrington, she cuts him off with a single raised hand, sharp as a blade. I invited him, she says, and the words hang there, daring anyone to challenge her. Daniel's eyes stay glued to the floor, the rag twisting in his grip. You can feel his unease radiating. Why him? Why here? The room's buzzing with unspoken questions. This was supposed to be about shareholder stakes, bottom lines, the kind of talk that keeps empires afloat, not some guy who mops floors. But Elena, she's not playing their game. She sits, tilts her head like she's savoring the chaos she's unleashed, and lets the silence stretch until it's unbearable. Then, she drops the bomb. I know what you're thinking, she says, her voice smooth as silk, and I don't care. Every eye drills into Daniel now, pinning him like a specimen under glass. He's used to being a ghost, emptying trash bins, wiping smudges off windows, unnoticed by the suits who stride past. But today, he's the center of their world, and you can bet he's wondering how he got here too. Elena leans forward, her fingers interlocking like she's about to deal a winning hand. You're wondering why Daniel's here, she says, scanning the room with a glint in her eye. Let me take you back a few weeks. Picture this. Elena, always on the move, cutting through the 6th floor, somewhere she rarely bothers with, on her way to another power play. Then, something stops her dead. Voices drift from the staff break room, but it's not the usual gripes about coffee or shifts. It's a breakdown of investment strategies. She edges closer, curiosity tugging at her. No, you don't want that stock, the voice says, steady, sharp, slicing through the noise. Short-term spike, sure, but the market's shifting. The real gold's in the undervalued stuff. Look at, '08, the crash. Most got burned, but the sharp ones knew where to put their money when the smoke cleared. Elena's intrigued now. She peeks in, expecting some rogue analyst slumming it with the staff. Instead, it's Daniel, lunchbox open, sitting with another janitor, laying out financial moves like he's Warren Buffett in disguise. For 15 minutes, she lingers, hooked. He's tossing out insights on market cycles, growth sectors, risks the big shots miss, all in plain, no-nonsense words that hit harder than any jargon-filled pitch she's heard upstairs. It's raw, real, like he's lived it, not just studied it. But a janitor, spouting hedge fund wisdom, that's the mystery pulling you in. How does someone like him know this? She can't resist. She steps into the break room, and Daniel clams up, his face draining like he's been caught red-handed. Where'd you learn that? She asks, her tone even but piercing. He fidgets, fingers drumming the table, then finally spills it. My dad ran a business, he mutters. Taught me everything, finance, markets, all of it. When he died, college wasn't an option. Had to drop out. Elena sizes him up, and in that heartbeat, she decides. Next week, you're coming to a meeting, she tells him. Just listen. Speak if I ask. His jaw drops. A meeting. With my executives, she finishes, unflinching. He stammers. I don't think. You don't need to think, she cuts in. Just be there. You can feel his panic. Him, in a boardroom. But Elena's not asking, and that's how he lands here, drowning in stares, wondering if he's about to sink or swim. The boardroom's a pressure cooker now. That antique clock ticks like a countdown, and Daniel's pulse is probably racing faster than yours. He's out of his depth, surrounded by egos in cufflinks, not mop buckets, and every fiber screams run. Then Martin Caldwell, one of the big dogs, leans back, tie straightened, smirk barely hidden. Mrs. Harrington, he says, dripping with skepticism, I'm sure this is thoughtful, but what's the point? Her smile's a razor. The point, she says, is Daniel's got something to say about today's agenda. The room ripples. Disbelief, maybe outrage. Lawrence pipes up, cautious but firm. With respect, we're talking major financial calls here. I don't see how he fits. Elena doesn't blink. Funny, she fires back, because when I heard him last week, he made more sense than most of you. Awkward glances dart around. Lawrence twitches, Martin snorts, but Elena's doubling down. Daniel's got a perspective we're missing, she says. Our assets are tanking. Don't pretend they're not. We need something new, and he's it. Martin turns to Daniel, voice laced with challenge. Well, then, dazzle us. Silence slams down again. Daniel's throat locks up, palms slick with sweat. All those eyes, waiting for him to flop. He could bolt, but then he flashes to his dad, those late nights poring over ledgers, breaking down markets like a puzzle. That's his anchor. He takes a breath, steadies himself, and you're right there with him, wondering, can he pull this off? Picture this. A room full of millionaires, their confidence practically dripping from their cufflinks, all waiting to see how they'll carve up a struggling empire. The stakes are sky high, and every second pulses with tension. Then, a janitor, a guy who's spent years invisible, pushing a mop, steps up to the table and starts unraveling their world. How does someone like him flip the script on the sharpest minds in the game? Stick with me, because this story's about to pull you in and keep you guessing. Daniel's heart pounds as every eye in that sleek Harrington Enterprises boardroom locks onto him. He's still clutching that rag, a relic of the life he's always known, but something's shifting. He's not just the outsider anymore, the guy who's emptied their trash while they ignored him. Moments ago, they smirked, ready to watch him crash. Now, they're hanging on his next move. He takes a shaky breath, then locks eyes with Martin, the exec who'd oozed skepticism, worried about those underperforming assets. Daniel asks, voice steadying. Martin's eyebrow arches, a silent prove it. Daniel nods, not out of nerves, but because he's already pieced together what they've all missed. I read the reports, he says, his tone growing bolder. The issue's not the assets, it's how you're sizing them up. A ripple of murmurs cuts through the room. Martin scoffs, arms crossed. Oh, enlighten us, how should we evaluate them? Daniel doesn't flinch. He leans in, like he's about to share a secret you'd kill to hear. Like a smart investor in a downturn, he says. Not what it's worth today, but what it could be tomorrow. The chatter dies. Elena, perched at the table's head, lets a slow smile creep across her face. She knew he had this in him. But you're not ready for what's coming next, when Daniel starts dropping numbers that make even the top dogs blink. Flash back with me for a sec. Daniel's mind drifts to those late nights with his dad, poring over dog-eared business journals from a second-hand shop. Case studies, market trends. His dad broke it all down, turning numbers into stories. When he died, that world faded, leaving Daniel with a head full of know-how and a mop in his hands. Years of scrubbing floors, watching execs strut by, their decisions echoing down the halls he cleaned. All that buried potential, until now. Something clicks. He's not just here to listen anymore. He's here to speak. The room's vibe shifts hard. Martin's smirk is history. He's leaning back, sizing Daniel up. All right, he drawls, let's say we buy this potential value angle. What are we missing? Daniel exhales, years of watching from the shadows flooding back. He turns to Lawrence, the CFO, who's been clutching his pen like a lifeline. Logistics, Daniel says, point blank. That's your bleed. Lawrence blinks, caught off guard. How did you? Reports, Daniel cuts in. You're hemorrhaging cash outsourcing distribution when your own fleet's barely half used. You can feel the air tighten. Nobody saw this coming. He's rolling now. Your outsourcing costs spiked 12% in 2 quarters, he says, but your internal fleet's sitting there, ready to roll at half capacity. You're shelling out big for something you could do cheaper in-house. Lawrence shifts, defensive. We ran models. Outdated ones, Daniel fires back. Fuel costs, freight rates, pre-pandemic numbers. Useless now. The room's so quiet you'd hear a feather drop. Alyssa Chen, a junior exec, flicks through her tablet, muttering, wait, he's right. Daniel keeps going, relentless. You've got millions in assets collecting dust. Restructure distribution, lean on your fleet, cut outsourcing by 30%. That's $8 million saved, easy. Whispers ripple across the table, some shocked, some grudgingly impressed. Martin's face darkens, but he's got nothing to say. Elena breaks the hush, her voice like a gavel. This is why Daniel's here. He swallows, pulse racing. Did he just win or dig his own grave? Then Lawrence leans in, cautious but curious. Can you show us how to pull it off? Daniel hesitates, fists clenching under the table. This is it. Back down or rise up. Yes, he says, voice firm, surprising even himself. But what Elena says next? That's the curveball nobody's braced for. Silence blankets the room, thick and charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. Daniel's done the unthinkable. He didn't just talk, he schooled them. Lawrence rubs his jaw, glancing from Elena to Daniel. You're saying we can slash $8 million just rejigging logistics? Daniel nods. Alyssa's still crunching numbers, whispering, it checks out. Another exec pipes up, incredulous. You got this from reports. Daniel pauses, feeling the weight of their stares, people who've ruled from corner offices while he scrubbed their floors. I pay attention, he says, simple but loaded. Some nod, impressed, others squirm, uneasy. Elena's grin widens. She's been waiting for this. She turns to Lawrence. How long have we been hunting for a financial consultant? He blinks. 6 months. She nods, then fixes her gaze on Daniel. You want the job. The air jolts. Daniel freezes. What? Financial consultant, she says, cool as ice. Starting now. The room explodes. Martin's chair screeches as he bolts up. Elena, be serious, a janitor. She doesn't blink. Yes. Lawrence pinches his nose. This isn't how we hire. It is today, she snaps. Martin laughs, sharp and bitter. You can't. I own this company, she cuts in, tilting her head. I do what I want. Chaos stalls. Daniel's brain scrambles. A minute ago, he was the guy with the mop. Now, he's staring at a seat in their world. I don't even have a degree, he stammers. Elena waves it off, unflinching. What if the guy who mops the floors knows more about saving a company than the millionaires running it? That's the wild twist waiting for you in this story, one that'll have you rooting for an underdog who's about to turn a boardroom upside down. Stick with me, because you're about to see how a janitor named Daniel goes from scrubbing tiles to shaking up an empire, and trust me, you won't see the full picture coming. The air in Elena Harrington's private elevator hums with tension as Daniel stands there, still reeling. Yesterday, he was invisible. Now, he's a financial consultant. Elena, the widow who owns it all, breaks the silence with a question that hooks you right in. You think this was luck? She asks, her finger hovering over the top floor button. Daniel shifts, his janitor's instinct screaming he doesn't belong here. Wasn't it? Her quiet laugh cuts through the hum. No, Daniel, it wasn't. The elevator climbs, and your curiosity climbs with it. What does she mean? She turns, her eyes pinning him like a spotlight. I did my homework, she says, voice sharp and steady. Before that break room, before the meeting, I knew you. His stomach knots. What? Your dad's business, she says, the college dropout after he died, the years stuck in jobs way below what you're capable of. Life didn't hand you a golden ticket, did it? He clenches his fists, words failing him. She doesn't stop. I know you've been sneaking financial reports in the janitor's closet, tracking stocks on your phone before shifts. Everyone here missed you, until today. That hits him hard, and it hits you too. How long has she been watching? The elevator dings, doors sliding open to her private office, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city like a king's view. She steps in, waving him to follow. This company needs people who see what others don't, she says, striding to her desk. Not yes men nodding at dumb calls because they're scared to rock the boat. She faces him, unflinching. That's you. Daniel's breath catches, doubt clawing at him. I don't know if I can do this, he admits, voice raw. She tilts her head. Why not? A dry laugh escapes him. Because my whole life, I've been told this isn't me. Her gaze narrows, fierce. Then they lied. That lands like a punch, and you feel it too. How many times have you been told where you fit? She leans against her desk, arms crossed. Two paths, she says. Let this scare you back to small, or do what you've always done. Watch, learn, and prove them wrong. He hesitates, then meets her eyes. I'm in, he says, voice steadying. Her smirk flickers, barely there. Good, your first task starts tomorrow. But what's coming next? It's bigger than he, or you, can guess. Cut to morning. Daniel steps off that same elevator, but now he's not hauling a mop. He's in a suit Elena sent over, nothing flashy, just right. The executive floor buzzes, and the stairs hit him like a wave, some skeptical, some stunned, a few outright cold. He's an intruder in their world, but Elena's words echo, you were lied to. Alyssa Chen waits by the conference room, sizing him up. She hands him a stack of reports with a nod. Hope you're ready. They won't hold back. He flips through the pages, numbers dancing in his head, and looks up. Good. I don't want them to. Her lips twitch, almost a grin, before she swings the door open. Inside, the big guns are waiting. Martin Caldwell barely glances his way, still stinging from yesterday. Lawrence, the CFO, adjusts his glasses, all business. Harrington wants a cost-saving logistics plan, he says, no fluff. Show us. Daniel sits, spreads his notes like a map he's memorized. No jitters this time, just a quiet fire. He knows these flaws, these numbers, better than they ever did. He scans the room, then starts, voice ringing with something new, certainty. You're bleeding cash on outsourcing when your fleet's half idle, he says, laying it bare. Cut that by 30%, save $8 million. Simple. You're with him now, feeling that shift. He's not just here, he belongs. Flash back to those nights with his dad, decoding old journals, learning markets like a code. Life buried that, stuck him with a mop, but he never stopped watching. Now, it's paying off. Martin shifts, Lawrence scribbles, Alyssa nods, they're listening. Elena's bet wasn't luck, it was vision. She saw what they didn't. Talent doesn't need a degree, just a shot. Degrees. She'd scoffed in that elevator. Half the clowns running billion-dollar funds don't have what you do, results. Daniel's hands sweat as the meeting wraps, execs whispering, some shaken, some quietly awed. He's still processing. Janitor to this. Elena lingers, her knowing look saying she planned it all. Walk with me, she'd said, and now you get why. She didn't just give him a job, she handed him a rewrite. You solved what ate our profits for a year, she'd told him. I don't let that go to waste. He'd said yes, not because it was easy, but because for once, he felt seen. And tomorrow, that's when the real test kicks in, pushing him, and you, into uncharted ground.